here I met one of the owners who is actually directing a golf movie in South Korea. Like, this is crazy. Like, the way that this conversation even came out to be, I was talking to him about, what I actually really like to do full time. Like, this is my side passion. This is a way of my tool, my expression. But this is not what I do like full time. And he asked me, like, what do you do full time? I'm working on Zasin, this golf apparel, blah, blah, blah. I pretty much gave him the whole rundown I did to you guys just now. And he was like, that's crazy because I'm actually creating a documentary for a golf movie. And I would like for your brand to be pretty much featured. He wanted me to create a fit for the lead model. And this is just one of the very small ways that this industry is super interconnected, and everything that I've been doing that I've questioned myself for, it proves to me every day that what I'm doing matters and it makes sense and I'm on the right path.
Welcome back to Badass Women in Business podcast. We are excited for our guest today. Our guest today is Kim. Good luck finding Kim when we only have one name to give. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but welcome to the podcast. We are excited to have you here. Please tell us your story.
Hi, Badass Woman in Business. I'm Kim, and I'm a 24-year-old serial entrepreneur and a former Division I golfer. So let's talk a little bit about my journey, where it all started. I was originally born in South Korea, moved through Vietnam, and eventually brought me to United States. And this was all by the age of 12. And adapting to new cultures and languages while, holding on to a dream of following footsteps of legend like Tiger Woods. It was immensely challenging, but it also taught me, values of resilience and innovation. But, life doesn't really always go as planned as per usual. And I realized that my true calling wasn't really on the golf course, but in the world of business, hence why I'm here now. And this led me to the birth of my ventures, each reflecting on my heritage and my passion for breaking norms. So I'll kind of briefly explain the three ventures that I have as briefly as possible. First is Zasin. It's a pre-seed directly inspired by my challenges as a female athlete and embracing my heritage. This brand addresses the gap of functional yet stylish golf wear for women, and bringing a thoughtful approach to design that considers what female athletes truly need and want. And here we're not just making clothes, we're crafting almost like a movement that empowers women on and both off the course in hopes to merge athletic functionality with fashion forward design. So that's the quickest synopsis I can give of Zasin. Moving on to my second, which is Juju on the Gem. Juju is my nickname. My original name is Binju in Korean. And I was trying to play like a twist off, something fun. And that's what I ended up with. But pretty much we use tooth grills and tooth gems. And it's not just adornments, but as a medium for storytelling and self-expression. And that's actually currently like what I kind of have. I don't want to show too like detail, but people can find it out in my Instagram page or my website. Pretty much fuses Korean glam with New York City's edgy vibe. My aim is to work with ultimately Fashion Week, underground clubs I've worked with, or even at festivals, which I'll be attending in Vegas this summer. But most importantly, it's about, collaboration, working with stylists, artists, musicians, anyone who really understands that, making yourself a work of art is pretty much like the ultimate way to create value. And what I love about Juju on the Gem and working as a stylist here is I love aligning with people whose vision vibe with mine and just building something beautiful together. So I have a photo shoot coming up in 2 weeks. And we're building something really cool together, and it involves snakes. So, yeah, I will loop you back onto that once that happens. But that is my second venture. And last and definitely not least, I make time to freelance digital marketing. This is more so for helping closer connections and clients. I leverage technology and creativity, bridging traditional marketing with digital innovation, much like, how I bridged my Korean heritage with Western influences. And this is turning into a really long story of me. But yeah, each of these ventures is a testament to, turning my adversity of the past into almost an advantage. And they're all deeply rooted in the lessons that I've learned from my diverse cultural experiences. And they reflect a journey of, breaking norms, embracing authenticity. And I just want to be on here to kind of talk about more of that. And I want to empower others, specifically, aspiring entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, to do the same.
I love your story, Kim. And one of the things that prompted me to invite you is the fact that there are so many people who are hesitant in starting a business, and you've started three, and they're all three kind of like in startup mode, aside from your digital marketing business, because I know you've been doing it for some time. But how do you prioritize between your three businesses, and ultimately, which one do you want to see as the brand that's going to capture who you are as a human?
So I think first, to answer your question, how I manage everything, this is a one-man show as of now. And I would be lying if I said like I slay it all the time and I know how to, do everything all at the same time. To be frank, like I'm kind of bad at multitasking. So I like pour all my attention into one, and then I have to like do another at a different time. So I think understanding that about myself, I'm a heavy J. I'm very into like MBTI, Myers-Briggs. And given that I'm a heavy J, I like to plan ahead. And especially when it comes to Juju on the Gem, it's more so like collaboration and event based. So those I can kind of take my time out and iron out throughout the course of the year and see, oh, these are the days I need to prioritize more on the Juju on the Gem. Juju on this Gem is more of like my passion project, right? And so to answer your question in terms of, what I see myself writing out long-term wise, it definitely has to be Zasin, which is my golf wear brand that is, still very much in the beginning stage, but it's something I truly believe in and something I see myself growing as I'm growing.
Let's talk about a little bit more for those who maybe have never golfed as a female. Like, what are the biggest challenges with the current fashion that's out there from a functionality as well as fashion perspective? And how is Zasin actually bridging that gap?
This is something that I was born to talk about. So I brought some statistics, first of all. First, we have 7 million women worldwide struggling to play. And the reason is because of the growing prominence of women in sports. They are still underserved by, the existing golf apparel industry. And, many brands fall short in delivering the necessary fit, functionality, cultural representation. Like there's so much more than that. And this leaves a substantial gap for, innovative and inclusive golf wear. And that's one of the biggest reason I wanted to start the company, is because I believe that it's time to revolutionize golf fashion, to empowering women to thrive beyond the golf course. So the current global women golf apparel market value in 2024 is 3.34 billion. And ever since 2019, there was a 45% growth in women's golf participation. And this is according to the National Golf Foundation. And this is something you might be aware, but 80% of consumer purchasing decisions are made by women, obviously. And so, given those statistics, I was trying to find an advantage with pre-existing strengths that I have as a Division One golfer who firsthand went through the challenges of wearing skirts that were too tight or too long or too flowy when you're just trying to putt. And, it makes me mad almost that, still to this day, so many golf brands out or so many brands out there and innovation, yet we are still wearing clothes that don't fit us right. Like, I just didn't think that was right. And I knew I could bring change to that. The golf industry is still very male dominated, especially when it comes to business ownerships. Like I said, the lack of understanding for fit, functionality, comfort, flattery, even with the professional level, women golfers still face, disparities in prize money and sponsorship opportunities compared to their male counterparts. For example, the total purse in women's major golf tournaments is still typically less than half of men's major and, more. So just like this is an example, but imagine if like a group of women were tasked to design like protective cups for male athletes. These women, while potentially being excellent designers, they're not going to fully grasp the specific comfort and protection and functional requirements that are needed for a very personal and essential piece of male's sports equipment. And I think this is like the same thing when it comes to women's golf wear. They might focus on aesthetics or materials that, don't that seem appropriate without really truly understanding what it means to give support. So this situation specifically, I think underlines how critical it is for, like the end user needs and experiences when it comes to like product design. And just as protective gear, athletic gear for men should be designed with, direct input and insight from those who will actually wear it. Women's golf clothes should be ideally be designed by, people who understand firsthand the fit, functionality, the style that female golfers need and want. And that is one of the biggest reason I used my leverage and network to hear voices from current and former D1 athletes. And I pretty much went around, did a survey in person, online, to kind of gather data and to see like what is the gap that we have and what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And it's, the things that I've mentioned earlier on about fit, functionality, style. And that's how kind of Zasin came about. So my brand mission with Zasin is to bridge fairway to runway, inspiring a new era of play and style. So I'm bringing next level functionality and performance, human touch and meticulation meets AI, integrating programmable technology from South Korea, meaning I've been practicing Clo 3D, which is like 3D rendering. And the efficiency here pretty much is that when it comes to pattern making, especially early on in the stages, the reason why this process takes so much time and waste is because you're reiterating so much, right? Using actual like piece of fabric. But this process that has obviously like entered America too, but more predominantly is doing well with IT in South Korea is like 3D design and AI. And I'm using that leverage almost to create efficiency earlier in the stage. So this also goes hand in hand with sustainability. But to sum everything up, the reason I wanted to create this is to create meaningful clothing that is, stylish, versatile, almost bridging competitive golf wear and casual wear. backed by, direct feedback from industry experts and led by a former D1 athlete who understands the need.
I'd like to throw a few challenges out there because the issues that you're describing is not only typical to the sport of golf. As a former tennis player, I know that I wanted to play in shorts, but shorts were not an option back then. And if I wanted to play in shorts, I had to get men's shorts, which are not very flattering on the woman
Really? It
anyway.
wasn't an option? What did you guys wear playing?
Skirts.
Got you.
Or skirts, more like it was built-in shorts with skirts. Because if you watch any tournament right now in tennis, it is very unlikely that you'll see anybody playing in shorts. Most of them still playing skirts because it's part of the culture now. And in general, I think that athletic wear, I jones every time at the color that male shoes have versus female shoes. We are typically tied to darker colors, more monochromatic, whether it's white or black. And men have these amazing bright orange, bright yellow that I can ever find. And so I know you and I talked about running last time we met. And so when I'm buying shoes for my marathon training, which I have to change every 90 days, I'm always looking for the brightest pair of shoes and I never can find it because they're all in the male section and they're not built the same way as the women's shoes. So I think that there is an issue to be solved in female athletic wear around the bend. I'm sure both of you have heard about the Nike commercial that was aired during the Super Bowl, and it was the end of an era where Nike was slammed for their treatment of female athletes. And then finally, they issued an ad with brilliant athletes basically saying, who said we can't fill a stadium? And now we're filling all of this. But women's sports is making a huge comeback. So anyway, I'm issuing a challenge. Also, my second challenge is a one-size-fits-all jockstrap, and let's see how everybody feels about it. Speaking of designed by women, I'm pretty sure some people would be disappointed on both ends. When you are switching your brain between your different ventures, how does it usually happen? Do you use the same skills working on Zasin, working on Juju, or your digital marketing, or is it different skills that you're bringing to the table?
I think essentially they are all the same. They are all an extension of who I am and my strengths. And in terms of the brain, switching back and forth, I think because I'm intentional with the time I spend on certain projects throughout the week, I can wake up to it. So for example, I have certain days planned where Monday, Wednesday, Friday is for Zasin, and Tuesday and Thursday is for Juju on the Gem and the digital marketing. And this is because Juju on the Gem and digital marketing kind of go hand in hand. I've been doing a lot of digital marketing and marketing in general, advertising for Juju on the Gem. So in that sense, everything is kind of casted together, and that's been helping me almost grow with, all three of my ventures. So going back a little bit about how Juju on the Gem came to creation, it was back last year in summer when I moved to New York City, and I had the need to navigate and connect with people in this crazy environment in New York City. And as a newcomer, it was really vital for me to, find my tribe in this industry, especially the creative industry, in New York City. From an outside perspective, it might seem really vast, but it's actually really smaller and more interconnected than you think. And knowing a few solid people really does cast a wide net. And Juju on the Gem became my medium to really forge these connections. And I think this has been a really good way, actually, of me meeting people in the creative industry. And this directly almost connects to Zasin, because a lot of the creative experts that I came to New York to meet are also like entangled in the creative like industry in general. So everything kind of goes hand in hand. And if anything, like Juju on the Gem has almost served me as a tool to bring leverage into conversation and spark something different when I'm meeting these new people. And for an example, how this has helped me with Zasin, this is like long coming, but I recently had an event in Brooklyn for Juju on the Gem. It was one of New York City's largest K-pop after and pre and after party. And here I met one of the owners who is actually directing a golf movie in South Korea. Like, this is crazy. Like, the way that this conversation even came out to be, I was talking to him about, what I actually really like to do full time. Like, this is my side passion. This is a way of my tool, my expression. But this is not what I do like full time. And he asked me, like, what do you do full time? I'm working on Zasin, this golf apparel, blah, blah, blah. I pretty much gave him the whole rundown I did to you guys just now. And he was like, that's crazy, because I'm actually creating a documentary for a golf movie. And I would like for your brand to be pretty much featured. He wanted me to create a fit for the lead model. And this is just one of the very small ways that this industry is super interconnected. And everything that I've been doing that I've kind of questioned myself for, it proves to me every day that what I'm doing matters and it makes sense and everything is connected and I'm on the right path.
I love that story you shared, and it's really about who you know, right? And I love that you have this vessel that gets you into having these creative conversations as well. I think it's genius when it comes to marketing. I'd love to know, when you gave your introduction, you had mentioned that Zasin is in pre-seed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, talk to us more about what that journey has been like.
Ooh, it's been a crazy one for sure. So the creation of Zasin, this is not something I've ever told anyone. So I have to wrap my head around how to explain this. But pretty much, I can think back to graduation. I'm 24. I graduated in 2023, so that's about 2 years ago. After graduation, I returned back home to California. That's where my parents live. And this was a trip that turned out to be more than a simple homecoming. During the visit, I kind of revisited with my parents. We were like molding relationships. I haven't been with them for 4 years during my entire college career. That's honestly like one of the longest times I've had away from my family. I come from a very traditional conservative family. They were very protective of me growing up. The first day I met my coach with my dad, he like asked my coach and he was like, oh, like, do you guys have like security guards like watching? Like, will you have like someone like watching my daughter to like make sure, like she's not going out somewhere? And my coach looked at my dad and he was like, what is he talking about? He was like, no, we don't offer like things like that. Your daughter is grown up, like she's all on her own. And my dad, I remember in that moment, he was like contemplating whether he should let me go to Boston University, but like it's too late because I already signed. But that's the kind of, like relationship I had and the kind of family that I came from. And yeah, going back home, it was definitely eye-opening and challenging and interesting, to say the least, to try to navigate what my relationship is with them now. I'm like 4 years older. I was away from home for 4 years. Like, they can't do the same thing to me now. I would say I'm like a little more grown up than I was before. And this is kind of where, my dad expressed his hope that I would reignite my earlier ambition to become a professional golfer. And that day we went to a round at our local golf club that I grew up practicing at. And I think it was that moment where I was standing in a familiar green where, I had previously spent countless hours each day dreaming to turn pro. I found this moment of like clarity that I realized that that was actually more of my dad's dreams, not mine. And that was when I had to go through, the confrontation and the challenges of telling him and breaking his heart that that's not what I want to do. And I want to be my own person and pursue my own aspirations. And I think that's really challenging to kind of say and like quote unquote like break their heart with, because like Korea and like now it's doing a lot better, like people are starting to recognize Korea as a country. We have a lot of contributions to the society. Back then, like we're very poor. The way my dad was raised, he went through a lot of struggles. He has a lot of siblings. I honestly haven't met them all, but he's like a sibling of 10 or something. And I might have met like 7 of them. Growing up, like he's always supported them. He's been like the role model and he's provided for them with his time, energy, and money. Financially, he supported his siblings to go to school. And given that, like he dedicated his life to, his family. And that's very, I would say that happens a lot in Asian culture where your dream is shared with your family. And it's such a privilege to be living in 2024 where you can say like, I want to have my own dream. Like I want to think about like what I want to do, like dive into my MBTI, like journal, like that wasn't available back then, so having to kind of like face that and this is a new day and age. Things are different. What I'm doing essentially is also not just for myself, it's for my family. And this is like choosing entrepreneurship, I knew at heart, is something that makes me excited. And it's something that I'm happy to wake up to. And I think that's when what you're doing is right for you. I think that's how I've been kind of understanding it as. And I knew that at the end of the day, my parents are going to grow old and they're going to need my support. And I want to be able to support them doing what I love. And I just believe that, the belief I have in myself will translate into success. And this will all benefit the family, pretty much. That was a long story, but yeah. So I thought that's how Zasin came about. It was almost a moment of clarity and a revelation, and I'm happy to be pursuing it. If someone were to ask me, Kim, do you ever feel like down? Like, how do you juggle everything? Like, I don't, I'm like living day to day. I'm still really young. And I think that's why mentorship is really important. I've had really good mentors by my side. Aggie, you would know one of your good friends, Natalie. This is actually a crazy story of how I met her. And it relates, honestly, to how Zasin came about. Because by the time I'll go back to how I know Natalie. I'm kind of all over. But at the same time I graduated, I had experiences pretty much in dabbling fashion by selling graphic t-shirts in college. And it started small, but it sold out. It was used for my club recruitment. And I pretty much took this experience to conferences, and it landed me as head merchandising roles. And I networked my way into Blue Startups, which is a venture like startup conference. And this is where I met Natalie, who I'm very grateful for. I talk about her pretty frequently, but she opened gates for me to be on this podcast and talk to you, Aki. So those are, I think, some of the just crazy moments that I experienced, and having mentorship from, esteemed, successful entrepreneurs that are women that I can look up to. I think that reaffirms my belief that, I can make it too. And having good role models to look at, like, it's not really easy to, find role models. I think it's almost hard. I think it took me to meet Natalie at the age of 23 to tell myself, like, this is someone I would look up to. And it's hard to find that, I think, in as a woman, because I've also had experiences where I'd go to these conferences and almost feel unsafe, being a woman, and feeling like the mentors that I think I look up to might have, like ulterior motives, like where it just doesn't feel safe. It feels kind of sketchy, like, can I believe in you kind of thing? And that's just not something that, I've experienced with women trying to help out other women. And I think that's also the biggest reason I wanted to, or I decided I, would like to join this podcast, is because first, like in the beginning, I was a little hesitant, as I always am, because I definitely am a perfectionist, and I didn't think that, my ventures were at a stage where I felt proudly to be able to call it successful and running. But then I realized that, this is something I've told you, Aggie, before, but I prioritize progression over perfection. And someone out there listening to this podcast can benefit from the story that I have to tell. And the fact that, I'm here and this is pre-seed, but I'm still young and I have so much more or longer to go, but in good hands and a good company. And I'm here to pretty much tell the world, you watch out. That's what I'm here to talk about.
Has anybody supported you financially in any of your ventures, or are you bootstrapping them all?
It would be the latter. So, but, I've talked about my ventures, but outside of my ventures, I actually am a server to support some of my means financially. And, when I came to New York, I knew the vision I had, but I didn't have the money for it. And I knew I had to get a job quickly, and quickly meant now. And the immediate job I could find, because I had bills to pay, I had to find a rent. I needed to find a way to support myself. I'm not home anymore. And this decision I made with the clarity of going back home, it was kind of sudden. I was almost like, I've had enough. I want to knock doors in person. And I don't care if I have to, sofa surf around to make that happen. I just want to be in New York City. And that's how I came here. In 3 days, I found a server job in K Barbecue restaurant in Manhattan. And I was there for a while. That was good money for pre-seed. And I think simultaneously that kind of took me away almost from my job, because it's really brutal. Like, I have so much respect for servers ever since, starting or being in that industry, because growing up, all I've known is just like playing golf, I don't know what it's like being a server or like any other, being in any other industry. And being in that and having to go through that, I've learned so much. And the biggest like takeaway I have from that is like if you really want it bad enough, like you'll do it, and what you're not changing, you're choosing. I think that's been a really big motto that I've been living by. Where I was in California, back home with my family in that safe bubble, like it's so nice when mom wakes you up in the morning and feeds you, has like dishes ready. Like that's not something I wanted to run away from, but it was more so the independence and that I wanted to pursue, and almost like the fear of being complacent and feeling safe. I think that for some reason scared me. And I knew there was a calling in New York City. I've never lived here. And I knew all the fashion connections are here. This is the hub. And I told myself, this is where I need to be. I bought a plane ticket, I think like 2 weeks in advance. And I packed literally everything up. And I pretty much left home. And I think that's been the biggest change in my life since ever. And I'm still figuring out, how my life is unfolding. But I know that, like I said, I'm in good hands. I have a good community. I have a loving partner and, friends that genuinely care about me. I think that's what really matters in the end. And I think something to shine light upon about complacency and feeling comfortable and going back to, what you're not changing, you're choosing, whether it be your life that you're unhappy about, or your partner that's not treating you right, or just the social circle that you're in that you don't feel valued or happy in, that's bringing life into you. Everything that you're choosing to stay and you're not changing, it's your decision. And you have to find the courage to choose yourself and love yourself enough where you tell yourself, like, I've had enough. I'm going to forge my own way. And breaking out of that bubble and the complacency and the comfort of home have been the biggest change in my life. And I've been riding on it since. I'm happy where I am now. I'm so grateful. And I think journaling and praying about it, revisiting with my faith, and overall just being in around good people has helped me kind of realize that.
Kim, you have a lot of words of wisdom, as you will say, for being 24 years old. I love where you're at. And I love that motto that you have. If nothing's changing, you're choosing it, right? And so we always have a choice to make. And I think that is really, really key. And so around that, as someone who has taken the risk, put everything on the line without knowing what was truly next, for those that might be listening to this and saying, yeah, and, or yes, but she potentially had X, she potentially had Y. What advice could you give someone who may be on that edge of wanting to invest in themselves and follow their dream or their desire? Like, what's the best advice you've received?
I think there's a lot, as always. But if I can say one thing, I read a book at the beginning of the year called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And when you read that book, you're able to understand how small changes compound over time. And what it essentially talks about is, for those tuning in and dreaming of their own ventures, but feeling like you don't know where to start, you don't have the confidence to be able to pursue this like full time. I think first it's important embracing the habits that foster the person that you aspire to be. And reading James Clear, Atomic Habits, helped me realize that in order to become the person you want to be, you have to believe that that is you. And I think altering that state of mind, what's keeping you complacent and fearful, is the first step. So for those that are thinking, oh, but like, like Kim, she could have had this, she has this, but I don't have that. So I might not be able to like get to where I am. I think that is like the cause and the problem that is keeping you where you are. You want to look into who you are and what your quirk is and what your strengths are, because everybody, as cliche as this sounds, have different stories, and you have your own strengths, and it might not look like, mine, which makes sense because we have different pasts. But I think investing time into yourself and seeing yourself as worth it to do that, and kind of deciding the person you want to be and showing up for yourself daily, and not by motivation. A lot of the times I think motivation is super overrated. Like you can burn out so easily. Like, let's say you saw like a motivational video on TikTok and you're like, okay, like, let's go. I have motivation. Like, I'm going to do this now. But what about like 3 days later? Like, it doesn't really last, those bursts of motivation. But when you unlearn and tune yourself to think and act and become the best version of yourself, you'll start to show up and keep promises to yourself. So, for example, for me, as Aggie's also preparing for the same thing, we've been running, right? We've been training for half marathon for myself, and it's coming this April, end of this April. And prior to this year, I've never ran more than 2 miles. 2 miles was my max. I was a sprinter in high school, but since then I've like never ran. I honestly don't even really like walking because I've like walked too much from my college career. Like, we would go like 11 hours walking. Like, I've been over that. But I knew that I wanted something that I can challenge myself. And, I'm a born athlete. I've been an athlete my entire life, and just like completely stop like being an athlete, like that never happens. Like, you continue to try new sports, or you want to stay active. And I had an opportunity through a volunteer for canine rescue, which they pretty much save dogs from Korea from high kill shelters. And I've been involved and volunteering for them for a while. And there was a spot that opened up, and my friend called me and was like, hey, Kim, like, do you want to run a half marathon? And immediately I was like, hell no. Like, what makes you think I would want to run a half marathon? Like, no, please. And then this was like the same thing as like when you asked me, Aggie, to be on this like podcast, and like where you like take a second and you're like, wait, like, this is what I fear the most. So maybe this is a good step forward. And I trusted my gut, and I told her, like, yes, I guess I'll do it. And when I'm in it, then I'm gonna be all in on it. And so ever since then, I've been training for the half marathon. And this will tie back to my earlier message about compounding interest and how small changes compound over time. But ever since I started preparing for this half marathon, it's become more than just myself and more than my own wants. It's for everyone that believes in me. I've, committed to this organization, to running for all the dogs that are in danger. And that gives me a sense of duty to fulfill the race and prepare and train as well as possible going into it. But, half marathon is definitely no joke. It's 13.1 miles. it's a long run. It's about 2 hours training for it, going from pretty much like no experience in long distance. You have to unlearn to be okay sitting in your own thoughts and silence as you're running. Like it's actually kind of brutal in the beginning, but I had to frame that mindset to tell myself I'm an athlete, like I'm a runner, I can do this. This is for a bigger cause than just myself. And I did that by training first thing in the morning every single day. And I run 3 times a week, and 3 times is for strength and conditioning. I find that, you know, this is really hard to do at the end of the day after you have a whole bunch of work and then you go to like run. Like it's really hard and draining, and there's a huge barrier that is set for yourself. And, you know, one of the things I learned in James Clear is, you know, the environments matter, and it matters to put yourself in a situation where it's favorable for your future. So knocking that barrier off by just tackling it first thing in the morning has really helped me to show up for myself. And again, this is all about like self-enforcement of showing up for yourself and believing in you and keeping that promise that like I will show up for myself because I care about myself. And I told myself that I will show up, so I will. You know, a lot of the times I like see these videos and they talk about, you know, when you say you're going to meet with your friends at like 3 p.m., you'll show up. If you know, have something to turn in for your work at 5 p.m., you'll turn it in. But if you tell yourself you're going to go work out tomorrow at 7 a.m., you don't. Like, what's the reason? And the reason is you don't have respect for yourself. You don't love yourself. And that's the biggest challenge that I had to unlearn through this half marathon experience. And, you know, for aspiring entrepreneurs dreaming of their own ventures, you know, again, it's establishing that habit that fosters the person you aspire to be. That can start with, you know, what I did, choosing a book that you like or you've been like influenced by or recommended to. I think that's a good start. Surrounding yourself with people and environments that elevate you. And, you know, again, this includes partners, friends, your professional circles, and just staying connected to your personal growth practices. And for me, that meant running this half marathon. And these are the things that I think have really grounded me and helped me navigate through the chaos that is New York City and running 3 different ventures and trying to find peace within all. And you just have to remember again that what you don't change, you're choosing. So you have to take action towards the life that you want. And each of my journey has taught me to turn all of these challenges into opportunity. And I think it's about not just adapting, but, you know, thriving by embracing your unique path. And yeah, hopefully I've inspired some others to do the same today.
Love it. Small habits repeated consistently lead to big results. I think that's the lesson for the day. Kim, we appreciate you sharing your story. We wish you nothing but the best. And I'm sure Christy will agree with me. We have no doubt that you will kick ass at everything that you do. And on this note, because this is a wrap, we're wrapping up. Everybody, stay badass. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much, Aggie and Christy, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did recording it. If you like our show, please rate us, drop us a review on your favorite streaming app, and we'll catch you on the next episode. This was the Badass Women in Business podcast by Christy and Aggie.